We always talk here at Alpha Rising about doing something. Enough with the talk. Cate Luzio is here with us right now, and she is actually doing something. CEO, founder of Luminary, but 20 years in banking before that. Yes. Cate, tell us first about your banking experience, because you've been all over the world.
Yes.
So first, what did you see while you were out there? Executive Vice President, Global Head of Multinational Corporate Banking for HSBC. You spent 6 years at JPMorgan, Managing Director, Head of, again, Multinational Corporate Banking. And I think most importantly, top 25 women to watch. American Banker named you for 2015, 16, and 17. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
That's a lot of miles you probably clocked too.
A lot of miles.
What is it like out there?
Listen, I think it's an amazing time right now for women. I think businesses, when you see across the table, and this is what I started noticing, almost 20 years in banking, what was changing was who we were looking at across the table. You were seeing more women CFOs and more women treasurers and more women in finance, but they weren't seeing the same on the other side. So they were seeing me, great, and I was propelling and accelerating my career, but I was hearing more and more from female clients around the world that why isn't it changing on your side of the table? And then as I traveled, and one of the things that I did quite frequently was no matter where I went, if I was going to see a client, there was a big deal, I would always go and do some type of women's event, a round table, a breakfast, a town hall, because it was really important to hear in each of these countries what they were going through. And everyone seemed to be going through something similar, but of course different based on the culture. And I think that's something that we don't take into consideration. We just think about, yes, women's power, but you really don't think about how does that look different in China or Saudi Arabia or Mexico or India. We think of it in terms of we're in America and that's what we deal with. Yeah. It's very different once you go outside of this country.
So what is it like? I mean, you said you started a finance group in Saudi Arabia. What is it like there?
Listen, I think women are finally, not finally, but they're waking up and they're saying, we're bigger part of the workforce than ever before. We are going to college, we're going to get our secondary education, and we want more. You go to China and there are more women in the workforce than ever, but then they're also balancing that with how do their families look at that? Because they're not yet married at 28 or 25, and it's a very different culture.
And that's bad still there.
I think it's looked at as like, oh, well, when are you going to get married? Because that's part of the norm. And I think women are starting to take that back and say, wait a second, we can do both, just like we've done that here in the US and in the UK and other countries. I think India has their own issues as well, right? So they're working hard, there are more women in the workforce, but they still have those social norms that they're dealing with. And so as a company, regardless of the industry, you really have to take all of those things into consideration when you're hiring women, when you're trying to promote women. And I think no matter where you come from, countrywide, your culture, your religion, we're all experiencing the same thing, just in a different way. But what I saw was just this amazing amount of support. Once you bring women together, particularly in smaller circles, that it's like this hug that comes around you, and I don't mean that in a corny way, but support, and then you start learning to play off of one another and getting advice, not just from senior women, because there aren't that many,
right? And
how do you do that sort of as a groundswell?
Okay, so, and I know this all led you to where you are today, but you come back to the United States, you're with HSBC.
Yeah.
Is it then that you realize there weren't a lot of women in the middle? You and I were talking about how, okay, there's no women at the top, but you need people in the middle in order to make it to the top, and they're not even there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't that particular institution, it was everywhere, because you've got a lot of women, junior women, and every company touts that. Half of our workforce is women.
Right.
But when you look at the numbers, it's a lot of the junior women, and those are great because we want to continue to develop them. And then you've got this big divide between that sort of middle level and what's senior. When someone's at that middle level, particularly in banking, at a VP, they look up and they go, one, it's really hard to get there.
Yeah.
Two, how long is it going to take for me to get there? And three, who's helping me get there? And so what I'm seeing is a lack of pipeline. And so and that's why senior women would get, the few that there would get called on, can I have a coffee? Can you give me career advice? Can you be on this panel? And it was almost fatigue because as a junior or a mid-level woman, I keep seeing the same women at the top. And we weren't listening, and we aren't listening to why women are leaving, why they're not progressing. And if we don't focus on that pipeline, if all we ever talk about is we have to get more senior women in the C-suite, in boards, we do need to do that. But you can't do that without having women coming up.
So, okay, I got a bunch of questions now. So first, why are they leaving? Why aren't they staying?
So there are lots of reasons. One, family, right? They're balancing that. Women, as you know, are taking a lot longer to have kids, and so when you get to that mid-level, they want to have a family or whatever their lifestyle situation is. So, but when they come back, and you read it everywhere, no matter where you go, it's hard.
Yeah.
You're getting passed over, you get overlooked, you may not get the same bonus that you thought you should have. And again, you work really hard in your career, particularly as you want to accelerate and you want to get to the next level, to sort of have that taken away. But then on the other side, you look around and you say, okay, there are less and less of me, women like me, or people that look like me around. I'm going to self-select. Why should I stay? I can go do something different. I can go start my own thing. And for me, it wasn't about that yes, it was about that I wasn't seeing more and more of women around me. It was, how can I help, right? We all participate in these women's groups, and that's great, and I believe in them wholeheartedly, but if we're just gonna say we need more and we don't do anything about it, then we're not gonna have more. And those numbers are never going to move, ever. And the other thing is we've got to bring men into this conversation in a positive way. If they're not at the table working with us and supporting the notion that we do need more women in that pipeline and investing in the women and the female employees in their groups, then it doesn't change.
It's not, and then the numbers haven't changed over the years, sadly. That's the worst part. So I want to go back to the cup of coffee. Because we talked about this, and I love this. So many women will say, can you have a cup of coffee with me? Can you mentor me?
Yes. And
this I know happened to you because, to your point, you were probably one of the very few women at the top.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, first of all, you get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And
you probably feel really bad.
You feel really bad, and you want to help everyone, right? Men and women. But you feel an obligation to say, absolutely, how can I help? Because I've been there,
right?
And how can I help you? But at a certain point, we all have to do our jobs, right? And the more senior you get, the bigger your jobs, and the more taxing it is on you, and the more complex. But those women also have to do their jobs, but they're saying, please help me. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And I think if they look at you and you look younger as well, they see, okay, it's not as far, maybe. So a lot of women will come, and I've heard this from some of my peers that are young and have made it to a senior level, again, across industries, and said, a lot of women say, wow, how did you get to an MD level at such a young age?
Managing director.
Right? Managing director in your early to mid 30s. Well, I worked really, really hard.
Right.
And
just to be clear, you don't have kids.
I don't have kids, but I have had many, many, many hundreds of women that have had kids that worked for me, and men too, right? And there are different, I've been able to kind of raise my hand and say, I can pick up and move to London or move to Mexico. So that's a different for me. And so absolutely, I've had really great mentors in my career, by the way, all men, that have said, I see something in you, how can I help? And here's potentially an opportunity. And so that happened to me, and I'm sure there are lots of women and men that's happened to, but we need to do that more. We need to stop, and it's not a great word, but sort of horse trading at the top, where we just kind of move one woman to the next role at the same level, or even worse, when you talked about the most powerful women in banking, it's the same women. And that's great. We're all successful and we support each other, but we need more women that are coming up. So why isn't that changing? Yes, people in general are working longer, right? You're not retiring in your 50s or 60s. Right. And you want more out of your career. And I think for me in my early 40s, it's like I worked almost 20 years in banking. I had an amazing career, had tremendous opportunities, but I wanted more.
And so a man of surprisingly mentors you, guides you, convinces you to go and do what you're doing now. So now take us from point A to point B.
So the mentor that I had, who's been my mentor for about 10 years, said to me, Cate, I was in the midst of kind of transitioning out of my last role, and he said, why would you just go to either another big bank or a similar role? You're not being challenged, and you like a challenge, but you also love people, you're a client person, and you're really focused on diversity. I was running all of the different networks and groups at HSBC and JPMorgan, and I said, well, what else would I do? You know, you get into this silo, and that's your experience. And he said, Cate, you can do a lot more. He's like, go figure it out. And I thought, okay, thanks. You know, but
I need this guy to mentor me.
He's amazing.
I love him.
He's amazing, and he's had an amazing career in banking, also a banker. And that conversation just kept I kept hearing it. And in January and February of this year, I was sort of interviewing and talking to a bunch of different companies, and what I realized was that it's really hard for a woman, and I don't know if it's the same for a man, but I've learned this as a woman, to pivot. So if I want to get out of banking and I want to go into newscasting, that's not going to be easy, right?
But for the record, you'd be great. I'm just
telling you. Thank you.
If this doesn't work out for you, you have a job.
But it's hard. It's hard to pivot.
Yeah.
Particularly whether you're senior, you're mid-level, and even more when you're junior. But more and more people are saying, again, I have to work longer. I'm going to live longer, and I have to work for the next 30, 40 years. But I want to be happy, and I want to feel like that I'm doing something that I'm passionate about. And believe me, I was passionate in banking and what I did. But when I wrote the business plan for this in March, and it was really developed around, I saw that coffee, I call it the coffee epidemic. Can I have a coffee? Can I have a coffee? Can we have a coffee? It's like, how do we do that at a bigger level and help more women and have more women helping women? And so Luminary is the culmination of that. It is a collaboration hub, a physical space, a collaboration hub for women who are really passionate about professional development and expanding their networks, because it shouldn't be separate, right?
So do we think of it as like a club? Or do we think of it as like WeWork just started The Wing, which is a place where female entrepreneurs can go and work?
So sure, you can call it a club. You can call it a community. You can call it a women's space. I think for me, it's much more about, this is not an exclusive space.
Okay.
We're not application driven. We're not sort of grouping people into who they are and who they aren't. We want to welcome all women, regardless of where they're at in their careers, that really want to invest in themselves. You know, I say all the time, nobody cares about your career more than you do, so you better start taking control. Whether you're 25 or you're 60 or older, you really have to think about what you want to do. We're always raising our hand. Yeah. How can I do more? What can I do? Can I take this class? Can I get that? And companies, I think, have tried and are trying to do that, but this is a different way of saying, I'm going to take this opportunity to invest in myself. And there are so many women's spaces popping up, and it's amazing because we've never had those places before. And I think Luminary is different in that we're really program and content based, so that you have this menu where you can say, you know, I want to take a course in how to negotiate, which we're all not great at.
Right.
I want to take a course in personal branding. I really want to pivot my career, and I need to know the tools that I need to sort of repackage myself. And so we've got dozens of companies that we're talking to that have said, I like this, because you can sort of become an extension of our women's group without taking over our women's group. We can offer a different opportunity for those women, for those companies to come to our space. And then as an individual, you can say, you know what, I want to come there because I want to work. I want to meet other women. I want to take classes. You know, it's really interesting because when you pick up any publication today, particularly in the journal, whatever, it's very geared, and it's because it's exciting, towards entrepreneurs and female founders and VCs, and you hear and read all of that. But the majority of our workforce, in particular women, will never be that. They work at a company, small, medium, large. They work at a nonprofit. They are a teacher. And they may never have the ability to go start their own company. So why should we forget about them? They need investment, they need development in them just as much as the entrepreneurs and the freelancers and the coworkers.
What I love about this is that we are hearing more and more companies coming out of the woodwork with women's groups and women's inclusions, and we're going to invest, micromanage in women, microfund women,
Yes.
and blah, 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 blah. And every now and then, probably because I'm a skeptical Sicilian by heart, I don't buy any of it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's a big press release. Now, granted, the jury's out, it's all new. But you're right in that just because the company has like a women's inclusion group doesn't mean it could be the same person that shows up every Friday for a cup of coffee, and we all sit around and we talk about how we wish we could do more.
And I think the women that are involved and engaged, and I saw this from all the banks that I work for, is they really believe in that, right? But most of those groups are volunteer driven, and so a lot of it tends to be on junior staff. And so they're giving. They don't really get recognized for that, right? And then you have, again, a senior woman come in and say, yes, I believe in you, and we're doing all these great things.
I did it, you can do it too.
And I'm not taking nothing away, right? And I think there are so many companies that are really invested in this. And those are the companies that we want to partner with, right? Because we want to say, great, we are trying to do and accomplish the same thing. Support women, have women support women, but don't forget that there's a big part of this that is men have to be part of that conversation, right? So Luminary is female focused as far as our membership because we feel that we need a place to go. We want a safe and secure space. You know, we have lots of perks like fitness studio and showers and changing room and beauty bar. So you want to feel safe in those spaces. But the way we've designed and developed the physical space, which is 11,000 square feet, is that there's another level so that if you want to have a client meeting in there, if you want to run an offsite, you want men to join a workshop or any of our content, why shouldn't they? They should be part of this conversation because the numbers that we just talked about, they're not going to move unless men are right there along with us.
I love the education aspect of it too, that I can go and learn. I think even women, especially the ones that want to change their lives, their careers, make a difference. They're kind of done having coffee.
Yeah.
They're done.
Yeah.
We've had enough.
Yeah.
Like, I need something that's going to propel me, make me better, help me get that promotion, whatever.
Absolutely. And I think, again, we don't give ourselves enough credit.
No.
And we are the ones that are raising our hands. And we're the ones that are saying, yeah, you know what, I see this young person, whether it's a man or a woman, but particularly women, I want to help them. You know, I mentor a lot of young women and men, but women, and I say, guys, you got to take control here. Don't just wait for someone to kind of pull you up. You need that support, but you also have to kind of make this your mission. And what do you want to do? And maybe it's not for the rest of your life. Like our parents, you know, when you got your career, that was your career. If you would have asked me 8 months ago if I was starting my own company on my own, self-funding it, I would have said you're crazy.
Let's talk about that because you are self-funding. And what I think actually is so interesting is that you spent your entire career giving out commercial loans, loaning money to people and companies, and now you're not taking it. How come?
Well, I also know how hard it is to get a loan now from banks. Particularly a new company. No, but really, you know, I wanted to do this because I wanted to put my money where my mouth is, right? I don't have children, and this is my baby, right? I believe wholeheartly in raising women up and doing it by actually doing it. And Luminary is doing that. And I've been really vocal about the fact that I don't want to take money unless I have to. And if I can do it on my own.
So you've been approached?
Yeah, and that's great. It's exciting. And hopefully when we open up all the other luminaries, then we can. But right now, if I can do it on my own, I want to do it on my own.
So the space is opening in November?
November, yes.
And it's downtown? Well, actually, it's uptown from here, but...
It's in Nomad, and it's in a great location, and we're fortunate to have a great space on Broadway between 29th and 30th. And
you have members already?
We have members, and it's interesting because we're trying to really build that community, right? This is not an application or an exclusivity. We want to welcome everyone. So I met an amazing woman entrepreneur, had to come from the corporate world, that runs and launched a company called I Fund Women. And they crowdfund. And so I didn't need the funding to build the business, but the way we're looking at this crowdfund is to build membership, right? So this isn't give me money because I need it and I don't want to go to investors and banks. This is you're paying for a membership, you're getting a discount, it's a pre-sale because you want to help build this community, you want to develop this business. So the crowdfund will run for a month and hopefully we'll build a bunch of founding members, and we're already doing that today with friends and family, and we'll launch that live in the middle of September. And then we'll open our doors in November, and you'll have very flexible memberships. We've got 4 different memberships because we want to be flexible to everyone's situation, lifestyle and economics. We've got day passes because we know women are multitaskers. They're not always in one place.
Right.
And so if they're coming in, they're coming out, or they're traveling in and traveling out, we want them to have a space to go. And because we've got these great perks, wine on tap, food, fitness, and we will have an amazing rooftop deck that's exclusive to our members too for them to access.
I think even though so many women still do work for companies and corporations, yes, this whole notion of the sharing economy, yes, is vibrant.
Absolutely.
And I know I freelanced for a couple of years. It was so hard to go sit in Starbucks. Like,
yeah. Because I have no office now. I was so used to having an office for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's what I do now because my space isn't built. It's like, and you're trying to find Wi-Fi and you're charging your phone.
It's nice. And I know that, like, you know, so in theory, are you competing with a place like The Wing? Do you consider that competition?
No. So this is the other thing that really bothers me because there are so few women-owned businesses and we're growing 5 times faster than men, but that's the low bar, right?
It is, but it's good.
They pit they pit us against each other.
Right.
The Wing, the Riveter, and others, amazing, right? And it's so, I salute them because what they've done and what in a very short time and what they continue to do is absolutely amazing. But we're a bit different in that we're targeted at a different woman. And so there are more than enough women in this world for us to serve and to help and to bring in than just one space, right? You can do that, look at any company. That's called competition. But it's also, for us, really important that we look at collaboration. Like, I would love to learn, and we are collaborating with one of these women's spaces out in Minneapolis, the Coven, which is an amazing space started this year by 4 women in the advertising world. And we got together through I Fund Women. They used that platform. That's how we got together. When you talk about 3, you know, pretty strong companies that are building right now, the fact that we share best practices, we're there to support each other. We're better to pick up the phone and go, oh my God, this is a roller coaster today. I'm on the downside, right? But listen, I think no matter what business that a woman is building, we've got to support that, and we should be there for each other. Little competition never hurts, right? I was a banker, I know that.
Right.
But I don't think we're competing. I think we are actually complementing that woman that's no longer a freelancer or entrepreneur that wants, again, to invest more in themselves and go after professional content. We're a different space.
You're a pretty awesome space, that's what you are. All right, so how do people find you?
So they can follow us at, I'm learning all of this social media thing,
good,
right?
Good. Because you're Chief Marketing Officer now, right? You're CFO,
exactly.
you're
everything. Yes. I'm really fortunate. I have an amazing staff of women who are just equally amazing in their own rights. But at Be a Luminary, that's our social, and then luminary-nyc.com.
And it's November.
So we've started our crowdfund in the middle of September for membership, and then we will start offering regular memberships middle of October, and then open our doors in November.
Off to the races. I think it's amazing, and I think people should be inspired by the fact that you are putting your money where your mouth is.
Yes, thank you.
Pretty damn cool. Hopefully you're still eating.
Yeah, probably too much.